Hello everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you guys. I am really excited to connect with you all. So my name is Mitch Johnson. I'm the corporate training manager at Wanzek Construction, headquartered in Fargo, North Dakota. As you can probably tell, I am not in Fargo right now. I'm actually doing this video from my hotel room in Miami, Florida. So this afternoon, I am working with one of our sister companies down here, who's headquartered out of Miami, to focus on an assessment workshop for the afternoon. So I'm excited to do this for you guys, just from a different space. So the first question, what do I do to stay informed, or what do I read to stay informed? I am a really typical news person. So I'll watch Good Morning America every day. I watch the local news every day. I typically watch it in the morning and have it on when I'm eating breakfast or drinking my coffee or getting ready or even starting my day for work too. So I am a big person that is sitting with the traditional news. I'll watch it sometimes at night as well. In addition to that, I think social media is a big impact, and I think, if I'm just scrolling through the news, whether it's or through social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or even Snapchat, I think there's those different media outlets that are on there that I can really find to stay informed through that, and then click on it and recognize the validity of it based on what website that is, or what article or whatever that might be. My best advice for public relations students is that I think, so even in my own career, my career is not typical to a public relations setting, in the fact that I'm not out doing the traditional PR work, but I recognize how PR has really impacted my career and the difference it's made in what I do. So I would say my best advice is thinking a little creatively about what career paths that you might have when you're thinking about PR. So it doesn't necessarily have to be traditionally working at a PR firm, but how can you take those PR skills and move them into a different career path, potentially, that might bring in some of your other interests and your other hobbies? From a PR perspective, how has it changed over the last 5 years? I think that social media, right? I think that's the biggest piece out there, and I think social media has really shifted how we get our news, how we stay informed, how we connect with each other on those news, how we let people know about news before it's even on TV or any of that stuff. So I think there's this instant gratification of building that. I also think when we're thinking about how we really present our organizations or our companies, is that the world is in an entirely different place. So we have to think so much more carefully about the words that we use, about the type of events that we do, how we do things. And I think we have to get creative, because the world isn't going with those traditional type of events anymore, those traditional type of outlets. So I think it's switching in that aspect. But I also think about just where we are at as a society and how we communicate what our values are as an organization has really shifted in being a lot more meticulous in that. Most interesting trend from 2020, I know it's cliche, but I'm gonna go with a virtual piece to it. And this is something that I have believed in for a few different years. So probably for the last 5 years, I have really gotten into that virtual space, just with the careers that I've had, in making sure that we're working in that. And so I think in 2020, that really came to the forefront. And so some of us who had been working on that virtual space really thrived. We found benefits. We knew there were all these different technologies and tools that we had done research on. And so now I think the world is, as sad as it is from a pandemic standpoint, I think we were able to almost catch up with that, of what that trend is, in really working virtual about how we're delivering information, how we're communicating that information out, rather than the standard or the traditional type that we're doing. So what's a typical day look like for me? I think this one looks a little bit different than a lot of PR careers. So again, I am in the training world at a construction company. So this is not typical for a PR degree. But what I do think is that the PR perspective has really helped me guide what I do. So for example, I am out here in Miami today facilitating a workshop for our sister company. So in that aspect, I have to put on a really good face, and I have to represent the organization that I'm in. So I'm still kind of bringing that public relations that public relations type of work into what I'm doing right now. Another thing, so a lot of what I've been doing lately is I will be traveling around to our different project sites, and I'll be working with our project teams as well as our client teams, and I'll be building a full day workshop to help facilitate what our mutual goals are and a mutual understanding. And I think that's a huge piece in putting our best foot forward. So these are our clients who hired us to do work. And we have to maintain that relationship, and we have to continue enhancing that relationship and building it up to continue to get work and expand and grow our business. And so if I think about, that's a huge typical day for me. And when I think about the PR aspect that comes into play, is that I am constantly needing to think about our business and representing our values and our beliefs, and really portraying that to all of our clients to continue that relationship. What do I do for a hobby outside of work? So I love the outdoors. I am a huge snowboarder and I am a huge lakes person. So almost total opposite perspectives. In the winter, I love to go out to Montana and I love to snowboard at all the different mountains out there. In the summer, I love to go out on the boat. I love to be at the lake. I love to wake surf. I love to wakeboard. I love to just kind of lounge out and cruise around. And it is one of my favorite things to do. It's what helps me relax. So every weekend that I am out on the water. Even if it's cold and a little rainy, I still love to go out there because it's my time to recharge and reset a little bit. Why did I choose PR? Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually went around and I switched my major five different times. And I actually had started in mass communications doing broadcast journalism, went to a few different other areas that were completely unrelated, and then ended up with a PR degree and finalizing in that. And I think when I thought about what PR did and the possibilities that were out there for me is really why I selected that. I thought this communications, this public relations type of work is really what I enjoy, and I think putting that best foot forward, help representing the organization or the business that you work or the firm that you're potentially working with too, and having multiple clients. And so really thinking about that communications aspect and the creativity that comes with it was what I really loved, and how I could bring that into, if it wasn't that traditional PR work, is that I could bring that into different areas and that I could expand that into different careers, which is where I'm at today. So I think that's what really drew me to that profession and to that degree. What skills do I recommend for a PR profession? I think communication, of course. I think understanding how we use our words, how we represent people, how we're working with other people, what their communication style is, what our communication style is, and really understanding how we can portray our business in the best way or our people in the best way. So it's about making sure that we're using our words wisely, that we're communicating in a professional manner, that we're using our hand motions or our body language, and really understanding the full aspect of that communication brings into play. That it's not just our verbal words, but it's also about the inflection in our voice, our surroundings, our settings. What does that mean, and how is that portrayed in both our personal brand and our business's brand? So it's about understanding that it's not just the words, but it's about the clothes that you wear, and are you trying to represent a very business-minded with a business suit organization, or are you a little bit more casual organization? What does that look like in matching those together? So then we'll move into some of the different questions. So teamwork and collaboration in the office. How do you deal with team conflict? Yes, this actually goes back to some skills that I recommend for the profession, and I think communication is huge. So if there's a conflict, I try to address it head on and go directly to that person. So if it's a conflict with me and another individual, I'm gonna go to that person and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm recognizing that we are not on the same page, that we're having some issues right now, and I really want to resolve these because I want to make sure that we're both successful and that we have a great working relationship. So I just want to work through this and figure out what we can do to improve that relationship. So I think that's a huge piece. I think sometimes if it's between other people, I might help mediate that, but I also think that's part of what my role is as a coach and as a trainer and a facilitator. So there's also being kind of that third party unbiased opinion. And I think in the work that I do, when I talked earlier about really going to our projects and working with our site leadership and our clients as well, oftentimes there is that conflict that comes up. And so I have to be that facilitator between it and say, okay, and if it goes down too far of a path, I'm going to stop right there. Let's go to a different topic, or let's hear the other side of the argument, and really making sure that we're mediating that conversation. Important tips or skills for collaborating with others. Again, I think this goes back to communication, is that communication is key. That we're being open, honest, and transparent with each other when we are discussing what type of communication we prefer, or if there's an issue. I really think that communication is going to be the biggest piece, and sharing all of the knowledge that we have. Making sure that we're not alone in that knowledge, that we're getting other people involved in that conversation, that we're asking for their advice and we're open to that feedback. I think that's a huge piece too, is that we as professionals are open to the feedback that we're receiving from our peers, from our supervisors, from those that maybe directly report to us, is that we're getting feedback from all around because we want to constantly improve. And when you're open to that feedback, other people are going to be more open to feedback as well, and it's going to really help improve that collaborative relationship. How has COVID impacted teamwork in the office with more virtual events and meetings? So like I said earlier, I have been a proponent of virtual meetings and virtual workspace for quite a few years. I worked my last company. We had remote employees across the country. We also had a site outside of our headquarters, and so we were constantly trying to build in that virtual space as well. I actually started my role at Wanzek Construction right at the beginning of COVID, and really it maybe impacted us differently from some of the work that I do unrelated to PR. So there's this facilitation standpoint that I do, and I think it impacted that in the aspect that I could no longer facilitate as many sessions in person that I typically would. But on the flip side, we also had people across the country at different project sites working remotely, different offices across the country, and so we already had a virtual space built in. Our team was actually 70% virtual out of all of us in our specific department. And so we had already had to build all of our meetings in our workspace virtually anyways, and so there was a component of in-person and virtual at the same time. So I think it didn't necessarily impact us as much at our organization, but I think what it did impact in the world is that people are more open to this virtual workspace, and they're finding different technology that works, and people are allowing more flexibility and I'm going to say casualness in the workplace, in the aspect that we are working from home. So if our background isn't a typical office space when we're on a phone call, and there may be kids or family members walking around, or kittens or dogs hopping on our lap, or we're hearing people out doing work on the house or whatever that is, that's become a norm, and I think that's okay. Is that we're allowing people into our personal lives a little bit more, and it's really crossing over that professional and personal balance, which I think is so important, and something that this world was trying to move toward, and I think COVID has really helped bring that forward a little bit. So with that, any other comments or stories about teamwork and collaboration that I'd like to share? I just really want to share that collaboration and communication are so important in any career that you move forward with, in any aspect that you do, in any job. It is so important, especially when we're thinking about public relations, is that we are constantly representing our organization, our clients, and we have to really put our best foot forward. And so understanding our relationships and how those impact the workspace is so important, that it's in the office and outside of the office, that we have to put on this good face, because it is so important to really do that. And I think really get creative with how we do that too. So I'm really excited you guys are all in public relations. I think it's such a wonderful degree. I am a huge component. I am an MSUM alum, obviously, and so I'm so excited that you guys are there, and I just wish you the best of luck as you're moving forward within your degree and within your profession. So congratulations, everyone, and go out and be wonderful. Thanks, guys.